Hello, I'm Daniel Gonzalez, and welcome to the Your Home podcast, where I have guests on to talk about real estate and home ownership. I hope you enjoy. All right, so this week I have Melina Tomson with me. She is the principal broker and owner of Thompson Burnham LLC here in Salem, which is also the real estate company that I work for. Good morning, Melina.
Hey, good morning, Daniel. It's great to be here.
All right, so today we are going to talk about the stats for Salem-Keizer, the annual statistics for 2020, and then a bit about how that's changed and wherever else that takes us. Starting from the top with Salem, the residential non-acreage home sales for 2020 fell to where they are at as of January 2021 to 0.4 months of inventory, whereas it started at 2.3 months last January 2020. 1 month of inventory is considered however many homes were sold the previous month. So if 100 homes were sold this month and there were 100 homes active on the market, then that would be 1 month's worth of inventory.
Oh, and consumers need to know that like a normal market is 5 to 6 months of
right. A neutral market where the buyer and the seller are on even footing, where neither really has an upper hand, is 5 to 6 months of inventory. So 0.4, so that the lower the inventory is, the more power the seller has, the higher it is, the more power the buyer has. So in 2020 in Salem, there were 3,063 non-acreage properties sold, which was a 5.5% increase from 2019. You look at that and say, well, if you have super low inventory, how did you sell more homes than the year before? And that comes in with 14.5% of the homes being sold were new construction. So over 10% higher rate of homes sold were new construction. The median price for Salem was for $331,500. And then that was a 10.2% increase from 2019. The average days on the market was 54 days. That seems like a really long time. With homes normally going under contract in somewhere between 3 days and a week from going on the market. However, days on the market is calculated from the day it goes up for sale, hits the market, to the day that it closes. And a lot of that, right, was when interest rates dropped, everybody and their mother were trying to refinance.
It was crazy for the lenders. Absolutely. They were totally bowled over. Escrow companies were completely slammed. And so everything was just taking a lot longer. And we're still at that place where, if you have a loan, we're looking at 45 days to get the loan done.
Whereas traditionally before this, it was closer to around 30.
Right.
Right. So it's taking half again as long if you're using a loan to get that closed. So I mentioned 14.5% of the homes sold being new construction. That comes out to 443 homes. And then those were listed at an average of $354,900 and then sold for $357,706. And that price was a 1.6% increase from 2019. Do you want to explain a bit of the difference of why it was only a 1.6% change from 2019 for new construction as opposed to the 10.2% change overall?
Yeah, new construction, generally your costs are fairly sort of stable. There was an increase in lumber costs. The tariff that had got placed on the Canadian soft lumber, which is what we use for framing our houses, And then just the increased demand for homes that really increased the home prices here later towards the year. So next year, I would expect that we'll see that new home construction price jump significantly. But between 2019 and when they started building and ordering the materials, there really wasn't that much. And the builders right now, some of those really sort of larger, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath with a bonus room, those 2,800 square foot homes, a lot of folks can't afford those. And so the builders have come down in price, trying to keep things more affordable. So it's a 3-2, 1,500 square foot, 1,600 square foot house, and trying to sort of keep those home prices stable so that Salemites can afford to buy those homes.
And I know oftentimes those homes being built, and we can see it in the price, right? The average price is $25,000 over for new construction over the regular median price for just homes sold in Salem in general. And a lot of where prices went up was in those lower price range. We're seeing competing from 400,000 and down, and the luxury homes, the bigger, more expensive homes, they aren't seeing as much of that competing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The under 350,000 market is insanely competitive. That's just where most people can afford. So it's just there's a lot of offers there. And yeah, that home price portion has really increased a lot.
It's got to be a scary time. I purchased a home last year, and it was nerve-wracking. And I'm in this building or this business, and it's still nerve-wracking to know that, a couple of years ago, this house would have, been worth, $40,000 less.
Right.
It's scary. We're not that far removed from 2008 when we saw a similar result. For what you and I know to be different reasons, but we saw the prices go up really quickly, and then it fell through. So it is scary, and especially for somebody who doesn't know the reasons. You want to talk a bit about what the difference is? I know you were an agent during the last downturn. You want to talk about some of the differences of what was happening to cause those prices to rise so quickly in 2000, in the mid 2000s compared to now?
Yeah, no, I've been an agent since 2004. So I started, as in a normal market is what I started in. And then, 2006, 2007, it's kind of like, what the heck is this? But back then, when you would do a contract, the way that the business worked is that I would write a contract, you would have a lender. The lender would order the appraisal directly. And so the lender, no matter who you use, they would, have maybe 3, 4, 5 appraisers that they liked using. Depending upon your lender, they may or may not choose appraisers who will, as one lender said it, give me some love. And so I had one listing, and I had there was 3 offers on it. And this is 2007, 2008, and this was back when they could do that. The lender called 4 different appraisers because I told him, I was like, there is no way this house will appraise at that price. It's just it's not possible. So he called around and he found an appraiser that would hit that number for him. So that, obviously that doesn't happen anymore. We had the Frank Dodd Act, which took care of that particular dynamic. And so that was one of the reasons for, home prices escalating.
And with that, right, the purpose of an appraiser, for those who don't know, is for the bank to have somebody to take a look at what they think the house is actually worth, so that the bank doesn't get in over their heads in case somebody forecloses. They want to be able to get the money back out of it. It completely contradicts the entire reason for having an appraiser. If you can pick your price, pick your appraisal.
Yeah, you pick a price, and then you pick the appraiser to get you that value. So it was sort of, and there was different, lending back then. So Back then, the 80-20 loan was really popular. So you would actually have two loans. You'd put 0% down. And it was a conventional loan. You'd take a 20% loan out, which was then you would use as your down payment on the 80%. So you can avoid that, mortgage insurance payment, which then gives you more purchasing power, but you have 0% down. So they're, sort of having that skin in the game, which we always talk about now. That didn't really exist back then. And with FHA, there was the AmeriDream program that was really popular here locally, where they would give you the 3.5% down payment as a grant. And then, so again, you could walk into a home with 0% down, and now you can only get a gift from a relative. So it's either you have that 3.5% down for FHA, or you have to have a gift from a relative. But yeah, there was all sorts of, there was just all sorts of interesting loosey-goosey, just things that were happening back then in terms of lending that people who should not have been purchasing homes because they didn't quite have the financial stability to be doing that and to be able to weather storms were purchasing homes. And that's the demand was what was driving up the market. So
right. Whereas now it's supply and demand.
It's a supply problem,
here.
Right. So back in the recession, and I can say this as having had several contractors, but at least half of the contractors had to leave the market. They, our plumbers, electricians, all of those folks had to leave. They had to go get jobs in. I know a couple that went into nursing, and they just had to do things where they could make money because they weren't going to make money in housing. And then I don't think people realize how long it takes to develop a subdivision. And so development, stopped. Like developers weren't subdividing land. They weren't seeking partitions and parcels. And so that's a multi-year process to go through all the rules and regulations to create a subdivision or to build an apartment or all of those kinds of things. So when housing stopped being built, around 2009, 2010, it sort of came to a standstill. They couldn't gear up fast enough for all of the people who were sort of coming out of the market and now we're coming back in the market. When a lot of the people who went into foreclosure with a loan, after 3 years, they were eligible through FHA to be able to go back and become home buyers. And so after living in apartments for 3 years, they wanted to sort of dive back into the market. So we saw in 2014, our market was starting to increase, starting to have some appreciation. People were starting to come into the market. And then really in 2017, it started sort of tipping up. And we were at that point where the developers were starting to come back in 2014 and 15, but it wasn't remotely fast enough for how fast up the demand was going for housing. So right. Especially here in Salem, where we're a growing city, we can't keep up with the demand.
And there are multiple reasons and things that get us to that point. I know, and we'll talk about the Keizer statistics here in a minute, but right. Keizer is at the limits of their urban growth boundary.
Absolutely.
Salem is quickly approaching that. Right. Both cities are due to expand that. But until that happens, the amount of buildable land to put new homes and continue to build that supply is pretty limited. And the best parcels to have new homes put on have already been developed. I think that many people don't realize what goes into building a new subdivision. It's not as simple as putting some roads down and throwing houses up and
right.
calling.
Not me with my grid paper, drawing it out, giving it to the city, saying, "Hey, approve that." It's not that simple. So
right, yeah, the amount of infrastructure that has to go into and the cost of that infrastructure.
Right.
You have the city sewer and water. You have electrical, cable, everything, gas. All of those utilities take money, and fees from the city, and there's an exorbitant cost to putting in housing.
Right, and they have to look at the soils to make sure because there's different soils will require different building. We have high risk landslide hazard zones, and so if you're in one of those are going to require different foundations and different building requirements. And so it's just there's a lot of things that go into it into building. And developing that subdivision. There's a whole process that happens on the back end, and it's not a 2 month or a 6 month process. It's a 1 to 2 year process, and then they can start. And especially in the south and west, where we have a lot of hills, they might have to do some engineered fill, and that's a process that takes time. So it's not something that we can ramp up really quickly. And now we're sort of scrambling to try and keep up with the demand because so many people are moving here, and we're continually far behind. So,
and I saw some article a couple of weeks ago where they compiled all the states and what the numbers were for people moving into the states or into that state per capita, and Oregon was easily in the top 10.
Oh yeah.
And those people oftentimes, it's people coming up from California, and they come here with quite a bit of money. They're selling their home down in California, and they're buying for $400,000 here what they sold for $1 million down in California. So those people are coming in with the money to buy some of those homes that are at the higher price point. What I feel continues to prop up our market and really make it as strong as it is the fact that those new builders, as they continue to grow our inventory, the inventory isn't being grown in the new home buyer range for the most part. Those, what right now is, 350 and down. That inventory isn't going up and won't anytime soon. And there is a large, with rent prices what they are, there's a large population here that are ready to buy their new or their first home.
Right.
And there's a finite amount of those homes available. And as we see, way more people looking to do that with interest rates what they are. Interest rates as low as they are and rent as high as it is.
It's absolutely cheaper to have a mortgage than it is to pay rent.
Yep.
For most people, it's going to be the case.
And as home prices go up, rents are also continuing to go up. And I don't envision that changing anytime soon. It's supply and demand, and we can't build supply quick enough.
Right.
The demand's not going anywhere.
I just think because, normally when you think of like demand, you think of places like Austin, Texas, where it's becoming a big tech hub. And so there, business is driving it. And that's not really what's driving, our real estate market. We have obviously Californians coming up, but we also have Washingtonians come down because they're tired of Seattle. We have Portlanders who are sort of escaping Portland because they're sort of, they can't afford up there. And so that's why Keizer, is really popular. And we can, talk about more about parts of Salem, but like Northeast Salem, where North Star is being built by D.R. Horton, it's a really popular place for commuters because it's so close to the highway. They could shoot up to Portland. It takes 20 minutes off their commute versus south where I live. So, and then the other thing that we're starting to have, I'd say about 2 years ago, we started getting I call them climate refugees. These are people who are coming up from Arizona and some from Southern California. It's too hot. They're tired of the 120 degree summers. And so they're coming up here. So it's a different shift of person. And the reason why they're coming up is different. And a lot of times they're done with big cities. They're done with Phoenix or they're done with LA. And so they settle on Salem because then they can still pop up to Portland. And so Salem is sort of getting hammered by all of these people deciding to move here for different reasons and not job related. So
while we're kind of talking about the stability and continued growth of our market, something that I think a lot of people don't consider, since we are literally the only one in Oregon, is Salem and Keizer's markets are a lot more stable than, say Eugene or Portland or Bend, because we have so many people who work for the state and government jobs where, during a recession, sure, they will have some layoffs, but not nearly the extent that you will find in a city that is that's economy is focused around the private sector.
Right. Well, and so we've got our state jobs, and then we have a really large school district. So we have teachers, and those are relatively stable. And then we have the hospital, which is growing. And so we can't get enough doctors for, Salem Clinic is growing. We have a doctor shortage here. And then with Amazon coming in with the whole Mill Creek industrial park down there, we've got, FedEx is there, Amazon, we have their distribution center, their delivery center is going to open up in the Sanyo plant. And so, those are solid paying $17, $20 an hour jobs. And so we just have I think we have enough stability that people can find work. And then the other thing is with people working from home and a lot of companies deciding to go remote, we're starting to get a lot of inquiries from people whose jobs have permanently out and now they can live anywhere. And they're starting to say, hey, we want to learn more about your city. So I just don't see, I don't see demand changing for us. So
sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let me continue through my stats here. Something else that we didn't hit for Salem was the condo market. We had 144 condo units sold of a average list price of $242,450, and then they sold for an average of $248,900, and it was a 10.6% increase over 2019. Condos and also townhomes have become the builders' way of adding inventory to that lower price point where they can't afford to build a home.
Right.
So there is some increase in that supply. However, most Oregonians, right, most people trying to get out of, moving from an apartment into a house are not excited by the idea of moving into one of those one of those new townhomes being put up. I think a lot of the condos, specifically Illahee, things like Illahee and over up in.
So yeah, like sort of the true, like we've got the co-op in Illahee, and then there's Illahee Terrace, which is the condos in there, and then there is, of course, the downtown condos. I think the big issue for people with the condos and townhomes is we are a massive dog culture in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, I don't know if you heard, they're just bringing up 60 more dogs from Texas through the Second Chance program. And so, we take dogs from all over the country, from high kill shelters that have low demand, and they send them to Oregon, and they get adopted out really quickly here because it's just, people have like a bazillion dogs. So, and it's really hard when you're in a townhome that doesn't have a backyard, even if it's a small one, to be able to have that for your dog. So like the Mackenzie Ridge ones, they don't really have even like green grass. It's all sort of cement. And so it makes it hard to have dogs in those. But I do think our dog culture here drives our homes. Because, having a fenced yard, like it's 95% of buyers need a fenced yard for their dog. Like it's just a thing. So.
And I've been somewhat surprised by developers, and I understand it, but developers continuing to put new homes in on these postage stamp lots when the average Oregonian or Salemite are people who like the larger lot sizes, room for their dogs and for barbecues and activities. And most of the homes being built right now, or a good number of them anyway, are on smaller lots.
That's not true for the North Star subdivision. Some of the new ones in the newest phase, they're on like a 0.20. They're on a bigger lot. Those are the ones that are up off of Kale that D.R. Horton's building on.
Okay. Yeah.
And so those are the ones that Larry Epping developed. And those do have, they have bigger lots, which is nice because there's definitely demand for like a newer construction home. A little bit better lot than the strip of grass. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I totally get why they do it. They can shove more homes into the subdivision. It solves our inventory issues.
And it's not affecting price that much.
It's not, yeah.
So then getting into, I mentioned I'd come to this, the Keizer statistics for 2020, they had 556 home sales, which was a 7% increase, and then 35 new homes, new construction homes that were built and sold. And that was a 6.3%, or that's 6.3% of all the homes. So there's your 7% increase from the year before. So their demand is down as well, just like Salem's, and they're attached. You would expect the same, but they suffer even more so than Salem for the lack of buildable lots,
right?
Due to their urban growth boundary,
right? Yeah, they're planned.
And they're further along in the process to expanding their UGB than Salem is. Do you know how long it is until they?
Well, we share a boundary, so Salem-Keizer share an urban growth boundary. So our boundary has to get done together. So they do their plan, we do our plan, and then we work it together into the whole plan that goes towards the city. Keizer tried to split off the urban growth boundary from Salem before. Springfield actually did it from Eugene because they shared a boundary before, and then Springfield split off. And then after Springfield split off, the state changed the rules, and Keizer wasn't able to split off. So they've been sort of at the mercy of Salem. They actually tried to get Salem to move a boundary in so that they could move past Clear Lake to expand their boundary, and Salem wouldn't agree. So yeah, there's going to be a massive amount of building once their boundary gets expanded. So
the hard part, it will expand our inventory, obviously, when they do move out that boundary, increase the boundary. However, with construction prices being what they are, what it costs to build a home, it's going to be hard to build those entry level homes, which is really where we have, again, the largest deficit of supply versus demand.
It's a little bit easier in Keizer because it's so flat. So, and even as you go north, it's just flat. It's just flat land, and so they don't have to worry so much about like landslide hazard zones like we do in south and out west for the builders. So they can save some costs on foundations and those kinds of things. But yeah, as you know, in Keizer, the water table's pretty high because it used to be a floodplain, and so they have to sometimes they put in sump pumps and other things to keep the water out from under the houses. So.
And Keizer continues to grow economically. They just recently released that Chick-fil-A has applied for
I heard it up at Keizer Station.
Yep, Shamawa Station, I believe it is.
Is it? Okay.
Side, yeah.
Okay.
Chick-fil-A recently applied for a variance, I believe, to allow them to explore putting in a Chick-fil-A on the south side of Shamawa.
Okay.
The other side of
right next to where that Bonaventure is. That between the Bonaventure and
yeah. So there's the loop when you come out of Keizer Station,
right,
to head back towards the freeway, and it's just on the south side of that loop.
Gotcha.
So inside of the loop, they're actively constructing a gas station, which
Right.
was the first building approved to go, or business approved to go into that Shimala station.
Well, I think the thing for Keizer with the sort of ongoing demand and supply issues is because, like I said before, we've got the Portland escapees coming down. Keizer, because it's got, Clear Lake and Forest Ridge are really good elementary schools. There's a great elementary school. And so they're coming down here. And then because Keizer's farther north, it saves, 20, 30 minutes on their commute to shoot up to Portland. That's why sort of that whole northeast section of Salem is exploding. And then those homes are going to explode and get built out in Keizer for that exact same reason. So I think if the builders do a mix, sort of what they're doing over at North Star, where there are some one-story smaller homes with decent-sized yards, and then they're building more of those larger sort of what you consider family-style homes with 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bonus room type of thing. If they mix it up, then I think they're going to do really, really well.
I'm here in South Salem, right by the freeway, and it takes me an extra 15 minutes to get to Portland compared to when I lived up in Keizer.
Yeah,
it's a significant when you're doing that commute, making that commute every day. It's a good chunk of time that you can save by living in Keizer.
Absolutely, yeah. So Keizer doesn't have a sort of a charming downtown because it wasn't a city until 1987. So it was always just sort of a piece of Salem. But they're doing some really good things in terms of the community, and the city hall is built. They've got their before COVID they had like the Shakespeare in the Park, and they've been really working on their park system there. So they're doing some really good things in Keizer. What would be really awesome is when they build it out, the next phases is that they build a little neighborhood hub in there. So for like a coffee shop and hairdressers, that they sort of do some little nooks and crannies up there. Because otherwise it's like, River Road and Chemawa Lock Haven, those are sort of commercial strips. And it'd be nice to have sort of a little pocket up there of,
I do know some of the new housing that I actually believe it's apartments, but I know they're putting in some on River Road, where the city has required that the first floor be business and then 2 or 3 stories of apartments or residential living above it.
Right. More that mixed use, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Salem had been hoping to do the same with that empty lot on Chemeketa High and Liberty. There's a big empty lot that's a pit right now. Where I want to say was it a bank, I believe?
It was, yeah. No, so Tokarski actually had looked at purchasing that, and he was going to build some apartments or condos. But with construction costs, he couldn't make it pencil out. But yeah, that he was talking about putting up some apartments or condos in that. He's only built South Block, so.
And I would expect until we get to the point that they do officially expand the UGB or announce that they are going to do it and what it will be anyway. I would expect builders to continue to and developers to continue to get creative.
Right.
It's their income as well.
Right.
And they're just not going to stop until the UGB is expanded. So I would expect to see more of those funky multi-use buildings where they can.
Well, and what we don't know, we'll have to see as we come out of the pandemic, is what is going to be the demand for commercial space. Because with so many people sort of working from home, businesses can downsize potentially into a smaller office space. And so, I think that there's going to be this sort of craziness as you see maybe businesses move around town and shrink their office footprint, saving the business a little bit of money. So I think there's going to be some a little bit of, I don't think chaos isn't the right word, but I think there's going to be some turnover in some commercial spaces as we see businesses shift their model.
From everything I think that you and I see, it's going to continue to be a good 2021. Inventory will hopefully
it'll be good for sellers, not so good for buyers. Depends on how you want to look at it.
That's fair. I am hoping that more houses has been hitting the market in the past couple of weeks than in the beginning of January and December, November of last year.
Right.
So I'm really hoping that the inventory continues to rise, and as more of our population becomes vaccinated,
right,
and more people feel safe having people come into their home
right,
to to view it when they're selling, I think more and more houses will go on the market. And I do think that there is some pent up. There is this feeling of people ready to sell. I don't think that the people that would have been selling last year that didn't because of COVID are going to just say, never mind, we don't want to sell. I do think there will be an influx of homes on the market as we get out of this pandemic.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely think that there is a group of people, for whatever reason, maybe they have a child who has leukemia or whatever, where it makes absolutely no sense for them to sort of risk their personal safety by having people in and out. And then for them to go into other people's houses if they're upsizing or downsizing. So I think that as we sort of come out of the pandemic and if we get that return to normalcy, which hopefully Fauci is talking about, that'll sort of start this fall, should start looking a little more normal. That I think that for 2022 that we should see people selling who had sort of been waiting to sell.
And the other factor that will make that I think has people anxious to sell when they're able is Americans have never spent more time in their homes than they have over the last year.
Yes.
So if you have lived in a house that you could stand being in, 12 hours every day, you may have found that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year is more than you could handle, and you're ready to move up, especially with people, businesses shifting. And I think it's going to be a continued trend, but towards telework, where they can save money on the residential, on the commercial real estate, where they're not having to rent as much office space.
Right.
I think people will continue to work from home, and that takes extra room. I know that it's hard to find two offices in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Right.
And
somebody's got to be in the bedroom, or
yeah, exactly. Set up something in the living room, and you make do with what you have. But as people become able and feel safe, changing that, upgrading to a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, if they were in a 3, or buying something that has an office, which I think, side note, homes with offices, I think are going to really start to go for a premium.
Oh, absolutely.
More so than ever before.
And I think because the state, I already know, because I have several clients that work for the state, they're going to be permanent teleworkers. And so I know that the state has, this is working pretty well. And so the state, again, if they can shift, get rid of some buildings, get rid of some leases, that could be a lot of savings for the state in terms of the real estate that they hold or lease. And so I know they're really sort of looking at that and thinking, wow, can we downsize our footprint, our commercial footprint, and save taxpayer money? So
unlike 2008, people have a lot of equity in their home on average. So way more people can afford to sell their house and get another bedroom, or get a house that has a dedicated office in it.
Right. Absolutely.
So I would really expect to see a even stronger market going forward, with more homes being sold than last year, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to be another crazy year. I really do feel bad for buyers. So it's so hard. I do my best to prep them. I know you do too. That it's going to be tough, and there's going to be a lot of offers. So.
And it takes patience as well, because it's going to take longer. There's not as much on the market,
right?
Whereas before there might have been 20 homes on the market that meet your criteria.
Right.
there could be none right now, and you could be sitting there waiting for something to pop up on the market to go look at.
Right.
So it takes, it definitely takes some perseverance to get through. And eventually, I haven't found that anybody has been unable to if they stick it out long enough.
We can get them under contract, but yeah, there's going to be a few that they're going to lose, and so I'm always a little concerned when someone calls and says, "Yeah, my lease runs out in 60 days," and I'm like, "Ooh, can you have another place to stay, or will your landlord go month to month?" And sort of talking about the realities of the market and how difficult sometimes it is to get under contract, especially if you're in that under 350, where so many people are. It's crazy.
And then the other thing that I found people are really struggling with in this market is getting over the fact that you have to go in competing situations.
Right.
You can't say, all right, I will give you what you are asking.
Yeah, no.
You're not going to get it. And it's really hard to convey to somebody who is looking to purchase a home until they have just been through it themselves and they've seen that.
Right.
So invariably, the average client is going to, the average person is going to lose out on houses that they wish they could have got, but they just get beat out too.
Right. And then I think sometimes it's a real shocker when they see what it finally sold for. They're like, what? So it's sort of, we do as best we can to sort of educate them about where we think it will land at the end of the day. Like, okay, they're listed here. And sometimes we do have some agents that are underpricing homes by a lot. I actually just saw one and I was like, this is underpriced by like $30,000-$40,000. And so I was like, so here's the real starting point. And then from there, I think it will probably end up here. And
that is part of the importance too of being ready to go and quick and having an agent that's watching for those things. Well, thank you again for joining me. It's been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, always happy to talk data. I'm always a data geek. So
there we go. Sounds good. Well, have a good one. Again, this is Daniel Gonzalez and Melina Tomson with Thompson Burnham. You can find us at thompsonburnham.com. Call or email us. My email address is daniel@thompsonburnham.com. And Melina's is melina@thompsonburnham.com. And we will catch you guys next time.
All right. Bye, everybody.